All right, let's open up in prayer. God, I thank you so much for this day. I thank you for these chapters today. They really spoke to me, Lord, and I pray that they really challenged this team of amazing leaders here as well. I pray that you bless the conversations that we're going to have today, Lord. Open up this dialogue, help to stretch us, challenge us, get outside our comfort zones, and really just move us in a big way, Lord. Help us see areas that we need to develop in and grow in. And Lord, bring to light people in our ministries that could help us, Lord, develop leaders, Lord, that could take over things so that our ministries can continue to grow, Lord, all for your glory, and just bless every single person here. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. So on we go to chapters 5 and 6, which I thought were really, really good reads today. This whole book has been good. I mean, I always say that in every video. If you go back and read, I always say everything is really good. But this book has been just really, really eye-opening from a leadership standpoint. And I'm so sorry for not posting the questions. Thank you, Lynette, for reaching out on that today. So I apologize. I hope you guys were able to review that somewhat before hopping on today. So chapter 5, Jim put, this chapter is another take on the role of the shepherd. Is there anything in this chapter that stuck out to you? So let's hear from you guys. What stuck out to you in chapter 5?
I tend to think that my primary job is to shepherd the children, which that's part of the job. But he was talking about I'm also shepherding the leadership team that I have and the servant volunteers that I have. And he said shepherding them is guiding them into deeper relationship with God. And I know that I haven't done that I know of. And it's just given me a lot of food for thought about how I do that well with the kids, but I don't know that I do that well with my volunteers at all in my leadership team. So um, that was a point that he made that I really need to think deeply about.
The idea of shepherding has been something that has been like sitting, and I know I've talked about this before because last year I took a class in Bonhoeffer, and I finally now have a place. I can't even remember what it is now. But one of his articles, and then it appears in another one of his books that I had to read, he talks about how as leaders we need to be we need to be more concerned about the leaders' spiritual lives than what they do for us. And that has been driving so many of the conversations, and how do I disciple and build into our leaders, because it is really easy to do the kids. There's a lot of stuff. But I met with our children's group, and I'd asked, like, how many of us are discipling? And I mean, we've got teams ranging from 20 people to, I mean, 3 people to like 100 and some people. And how do we navigate that? And so I had an awesome conversation with my leadership team, which is just a couple of parents talking about how, like, how do we do that well? And how do we create those structures in place that we're shepherding them? And are we, like, I look at my young adults, many of them who are teaching. I know you can hear my kids in the background. We're home from school this week. But the idea that so many of them need the shepherding, like they're in a space, and it's almost like our, and maybe it's not the same for your churches, but I meet with, in terms of leadership, our groups don't see themselves, our teens, our young adults don't see themselves as leaders. And so how many of them need that encouragement and that teaching? Like, I sat down with they range from 12 to roughly 16 youth leaders. And I said, like, are you guys a leader? And they were like, no. Okay, what is a leader? And just their ideas of leadership, well, they all had them, were like massive. Like, we're talking like prime minister level leadership in opposed, president level of leadership composed to compared to just like I can influence the life of a child that I am sitting beside. And so, yeah, it's kind of opened my eyes a lot more to how we don't necessarily think that those skills are things that we need to be teaching, but how important they are.
So I think I mentioned this last week or the week before, but I mean, I feel like, one chapter in this book kind of runs into the other as far as how the different things overlap into, like this one will definitely overlap into the time management thing because you have to have time in order to be shepherding. But one thing that we've just done recently is we're really trying to build into what we call our core leaders. So we identified a group of core leaders. We communicated with this group that we consider them to be core leaders, and we would be leaning into them, to assist us with training and mentoring and that. And we, gave them each a copy of Kids Matter magazine. With our guys that we identified as kind of the main, the core leaders of our guys, we gave them the Kid Men book. And when I bought that book right after the conference. And the book, to me, when I read through it, it seemed like it was addressing more of men who were like in paid staff positions or, directing and those kind of things. But I felt like there were so many valuable principles in that book that could be applied to wherever you were in life, even for some of our younger men, some of our young men that we have, that they could apply these as they're, moving forward in their careers or, through school or whatever. And so, I think just by doing those things too, that's a way of showing value, communicating value to our volunteers and also helping to shepherd them. And it's making us more intentional about what we're doing there.
I think for me, the part that really stood out for me is on page 58. It says, I know this, God hasn't put you in the pool to drown. There's someone somewhere who will carry part of the load you're shouldering. Is there a chance that you're not inviting that person or those people to step up and help? You're to be an overseer. Your job is to find people and equip them for ministry. Your job is not to do everything yourself. And I can remember when I started, like 25 years ago, I can remember asking for help and people saying, no, you do it, you paid to do it. And I think sometimes that's stuck with me. I also think that it's not always easy to find people to help us because people have said things in the past like, oh no, I've done my time, which drives me mad because like, how dare you say that about ministering to children? But or like, no, I've, oh, that's not for me or whatever. But I think that speaking to myself now, you have to carry on asking. I was just commenting today in our staff meeting that a friend and I hosted a workshop on Saturday, and it was a lot of work setting everything up. And we had so many people come to us and say, can I help you? I'd love to help you next time. Can I help pack away? Is there anything you need me to do? So I think to not stop asking for help, even if people say no, even if people are rude about it, whatever, to not stop asking for help because there will eventually be somebody that's going to help. And yeah, so note to self, it's important to carry on asking people to get involved and trying to give away so that you're not doing everything yourself, because it's true, you can't do everything yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the challenges for me with my team, my Sunday school director is 81. My large group storytime lady is 65, 67.
Wow.
One of my Sunday school teachers is in her 60s. One is in her 70s. Most of the people on my team are older than I am. And there's a few younger. But when I think about like what he said about guiding your team into deeper relationships with God, I sit there and I go, oh my gosh, well, these people are older than me. They're older in the faith, they're, older in physical years and stuff. And how do I guide them into deeper relationships with the Lord when they are probably the ones that could be doing that for me? And it's just something I need to think about, process through, but it's a little intimidating when most of my volunteer team for Sunday school is older than I am.
I kind of wrote down as you guys were talking was shepherding the flock. As Krista was talking, to define the role and then teach the skill too. Because as Kristen was saying, you've got teens who, you ask them what a leader is and they say prime minister or president, whatever you want to do. And they don't see themselves as a leader. And I'm struggling with that as well. I've got this amazing group of teens who are intimidated by this big thing as leader, and them not understanding that what they're doing on a weekly basis, they're already being this amazing leader. They just don't see themselves as that, right? And my kids, my kindergarten, first, second graders see these cool teenagers coming in every week, and they're these awesome leaders. So I think it's super important to us to define for them, well, you are this amazing leader, and let me tell you why. And then going, let's take it a next step further, and let's educate yourself, or let's define leader, let's train you as a leader, let's take you to the next step. Obviously it's a little intimidating, I think, if you don't have the right, if you don't have that leadership type of personality, which I'm kind of struggling with. I've got a great group of senior hires, but they're just more of the shy type. And they just don't see what they're doing as awesome and amazing, when I'm like, oh, you so are though. But maybe in over time, I pray they will see what they're doing is awesome leadership skills. But I'm just trying to build on that. And I think that is part of the whole shepherding the flock thing is over time, they're going to see what they're doing is leadership. But I think the whole managing your workload, I really needed this chapter. I struggle so badly with this. I'm like, I have the planners, I have all the things. And I'll talk more about this in chapter 6 too, but I struggle with this so badly. I'm like, I so want to give things to people, and I do. But I tend to take them back. More along the lines of not because of perfectionism, which I am a perfectionist, totally 100% honest. But I'm also more the type of, I never want to put on more of my volunteers than like I think they can take. Like I don't want to like burden them. Because I'm afraid of burning them out more than I am afraid of burning myself out. I'd rather burn myself out than I would my volunteers. I don't know. It's a mind game I think I play with myself more than anything. Like I should give them the opportunity to tell me no, Jody, but I don't. I'm like, oh no, don't worry about it. I'll just take it back. When I probably should just give them that opportunity to say it. But managing my workload, I definitely struggle with. So yeah, and I'll chat more about that with chapter 6. But I really would love to see myself be better with shepherding my flock, and I've got some ideas as I was reading this chapter about it. And same with managing your load, but like I said, I'll get that with chapter 6. But yeah, those are just my 2 cents so far with chapter 5.
One of the things I have found when, like Jody, you're talking about, oh, I give it to them, but I don't want them to be overburdened. But in terms of that equipping, so I have a couple, I call them quiet leaders, because they are the shyer, more reserved. And I think some of the reasons some of our kids, like when I think of your high schoolers, I know some of my young adults, high schoolers, they look and they see the loud leaders and they think that's who I have to be to lead.
Mm.
And so one of the things I've had to spend a lot of time doing with some of my girls particularly is being like, you can't compare apples and oranges. Like you and I cannot lead the same because I am loud. I am I'm a tall, I come into a room and I'm there. And that's not your style and you can't do my style, so you can't compare your leadership style. But I found that a couple of my Sunday school teachers were starting to burn out because they were trying to do what I do, but they're not that person. And so one of the things that I have found is that when we equip our youth or our leaders and encourage them in the way that they're designed to lead, when they take on things like leading Sunday school or, running a project, for some of them, that is like life-giving. And you've just denied them that because we decide in that moment. On the flip side, I've also found that some of our young adults are yes people. And they will always say yes. And I've had to sit down with a couple and say, you're going to burn yourself out. Yes, you might be 18 right now and can run 10,000 miles an hour, but you're going to hit the wall. And helping them learning to prioritize has also been a role that I have found myself in, and being like, what do you actually want to do? Like, yes, everything in the church is good, but you're denying people their roles to do things. Like one of the girls, one of my interns, I was like, hey, you're doing everything. Like every time there's a role, you're there and you're filling it. But there are people in our church who are gifted in that, who would love to do that, but now you've taken that spot. And not that she wasn't, going to be able to do it, but her gifting, she was really strong elsewhere. And eventually what happens is our youth anyway are, they're hitting spots where they're like, I can't do anymore because they're not serving in their niche, but we're also not equipping them because they think they have to lead like us. I have to lead like the children's pastor. Well, yes, but you aren't built like me. You're not gifted like me. Let's raise you up in your giftings because you can be a quiet leader and you can control a room of 100 children and never raise your voice. It's doable, but you have to figure out how. And so that's just something like that I've had to deal with over the past kind of 2 years working with, and like recognizing that the things that burn me out actually give other people life. So before you burn yourself out, remember that some of those people, yes, it might be tough. And if you're noticing they're saying yes to everything, to have that like, what is actually something you want to do conversation, but let them say yes. Let them run because it may be the most life-giving thing they are doing in their lives at that moment.
Just on that, I learned a valuable lesson a few years ago. I needed somebody to help me. We were doing like encounter stations, which is similar to prayer stations. So it was a lot of setup. And I prayed about who I should ask to help. And the person that the Lord told me to ask was a mom of 3, and she was homeschooling, and her youngest was like 6 months old. And I just thought, no, I must have heard the Lord wrong. But because she's just so busy. And then I asked her, and it was, when you say life-giving, it was the best thing. She used to stay up. She'd stay up after midnight and make the things for me, and then think up new stations that we could do. It was like I'd given her the best gift, and she kept thanking me for giving her the opportunity. And I just thought, I came so close to missing it, because I thought in my wisdom that it wasn't going to work for her. But it just taught me, always ask people and let them say the no rather than me decide for them, okay, you're not going to be able to do this.
Any other thoughts on chapter 5? With your role as a leader?
For me, it's been what stuck out to me was the under the shepherding the flock part. Um, that our first priority as a leader is to feed and care for the sheep that God has given to us, meaning the kids, the parents, and the leaders. Um, and at my church, we had kind of have like a parent partner program, so they're all the parents and the leaders are kind of they're the same people, and so and you know God made people for eternity. Like looking at the programs and like all of those things, like, for me, we got to remember the people first in anything that we do. Um, And, he points out, yeah, it's a challenge to come alongside people and give them what they need, to grow, to be faithful sheep. And it should be overwhelming because it is, right? And like going going to God, that needs to be our first response, and not try to fix it out of our own abilities and talents. And so that so being an overseer who equips others to do the shepherding, um, and how to do that better is kind of what stuck out to me.
I agree. I think that's where like when I was kind of evaluating those two, I feel like I'm decently doing well on the overseeing. Like I'm pushing some things out. Like I'm very present in that. But I'm not sure I've been pouring into my people as much as what I used to. Like I feel like I don't know, I'm getting too bogged down maybe with the other stuff that I'm losing what I used to do, which was pouring into our volunteers who I knew in essence then were pouring into the kids. So
I almost kind of wonder, with COVID and how we all had to like shift so fast into pouring into all like, things, to do stuff, we had to have such a drastic shift change, and we didn't have volunteers to pour into, it just was such a drastic shift. And then we had to come back and change it. Like, we're trying to get back into a cycle of getting back to the shepherding, getting back to, focusing in on our families. It takes time to get back into that. It's not just a switch that we had to do. It's getting back into things. I mean, I know it's been time, but stuff takes time, of realization and whatnot, evaluation and feedback and whatnot, and reading books like this and evaluating yourself and your ministries. So it could be something as simple as that too. Any other thoughts? All right, so moving on to chapter 6. All right, so chapter 6, if you know Jim, this is his favorite thing to teach about. He wrote a whole book on time management called Beat the Clock. If you've read that book, how is this chapter different? What did you underline that stuck out to you? Has anyone ever read this book, Beat the Clock?
I hadn't read it, but I will say that this was probably the most, and I mean, maybe it's just that when I've read other time management stuff, I wasn't in that place, but it was the first time I feel like someone was like, okay, here is the step-by-step way that you can actually do this. Cause usually they're like, just manage your time better and put priorities. And he was like, no, here's how your priorities go into your calendar. Here is how, and I was like, yes, before this meeting, I was sitting down and actually like writing everything in. And I have, I'm not in my office today, but I have like a big whiteboard that I can go up to. I have 6 squares and I do 6 months and I write all the dates that we need stuff and what event it is. But it was just really nice for him to be like, here is the checklist almost of how you are going to get organized. Now, if only he could be here to make me do it, but it was good.
Yes, I was listening to on Audible and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the answer to my life. Like now I just need to sit down and do it. Cause like total like transparency here. Like I am like self-diagnosed like ADHD person. Like my mind's all over the place. And I was listening to this going, this is how my life will become organized. Like this will be the answer to my craziness of ministry and life. Cause like it was literally like as you just said, Kristen, I was listening, going to this, like the way he put it, even priority wise, was so good. And I even like went back and circled it in the book, like circled Lord, circled family. Like it was just so like simple, but so good. And I really want to sit down and go through my planner and do all this. And I'm going to plan time to do this. And even if I can just do the first month, like I will be like proud of myself for doing 1 month. Like, but like he was just very clear and very purposeful on how to do it. And I don't know if it was chapter 1 he talked of this, or somewhere I read or listened to him talking about how, I think it was chapter 1, he talked about how like disorganized and how crazy he was until he went to college and someone sat him down and was like, dude, this does not work. So if Jim Weidman can do it, I can do it at some point. So but I was just really, really just excited with this chapter. I'm not looking forward to evaluation because I'm horrible at evaluation. I don't like evaluating myself. Because I feel like I'm very harsh on myself, but I really just liked how simple it was and how he was just like, do it, and this is how you do it, and do it now. Except one thing I will say I didn't like is his short, like the short meetings and short conversations. Oh, I cannot do 5-minute phone calls. No way. Like that's just not me. Just no, that's not possible. Maybe it's a man thing. I don't know, Darren, if that's your kind of phone calls, but would that be you, Darren? Do you like 5-minute phone calls? Not to put you on the spot here.
Not all of my conversations are 5 minutes, but there are quite a few of them that are
Okay.
less than 5.
I'm a major detail oriented person, so most of my conversations, just like right now, I'm probably going really, really long winded. But I like details. I like good conversations. I like good back and forth. That's just how I feel like I get my things going across.
Yeah, I think speaking for the men here, I guess. I think we like to be succinct and cut out as many words as possible. If you've ever seen The Office with Kevin, it's not quite that bad, but I think we do like to have more conversations with fewer words. I think is kind of how we work.
Over COVID, I got tasked with going to visit people, and our lead had been like, well, take about 20 minutes. I don't think I went on one visit that lasted less than like that short 20 minutes. Most of them were an hour to 2 hours. And my phone calls are like, I like the conversation. I want to know how your life is. I want to just, I don't know. To me, I read that and I also felt like this feels very like boom, 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 boom. And I get we want to be time sensitive, but there's no relationship. There's no connection. Yeah, to me was a bit of one of those
Now, I will say, when I'm face to face or with somebody, that's out the door. Like I can talk for hours. But phone calls, yeah, it's just I'd rather have that face to face interaction, and that's when I get in trouble of going too long. So.
Yeah, so I definitely think it's a male-female difference thing, somewhat, the length of our conversations, because I know when I talk to a couple of our pastors here, they're very linear thinkers. And so they're like, okay, get to the point. My husband's like that too. Like, just get to the point. You don't want to hear the whole story. And I like to tell the story, and then I think of, oh yeah, and I just remembered that I wanted to talk to you about this. So, we're talking about more than one thing, because women do that whole cobwebbing, spider webbing thing between both sides of their brain. And yeah. So, I mean, I know that I can get better. The thing that I know I waste time is scrolling on the internet. I'll sit down on the couch in the evening and I could be doing something, not that I'm going to start another big project or anything, but I could definitely be doing something more constructive than just scrolling on the internet. So
I had a conversation with a children's ministry volunteer just this morning, and I'm a short talker and he's a short talker. And I just had to look on my phone. It was a 47-second conversation. We got everything done that we needed. And that's all that we had to do, 47 seconds.
That is super quick. I was taking it more like for meetings. Like those are like when you're needing to just like get quick stuff. I wasn't taking it as like spend 5 minutes as the relationship side of things. Like, I feel like that might have been one point of clarification that I took a little bit differently of like, no, like just don't spend hours in meetings talking about something that could be handled in 5 minutes. I love this. My ADHD brain needs a lot of structure when it comes to my calendar. and just trying to keep track of everything. So I found a calendar that I fell in love with about 2 years ago. And I very much have done steps like 1 and 2 really well. Like I have everything laid out. I color code it in terms of I kind of have a dual role. So I like color code different things. All my meetings are in one color, deadlines are in another. Like all those pieces are kind of in there. But I think I struggle most probably like what Jody was saying with the evaluation. I don't plan in time to really evaluate. And then by the time I evaluate, it's so far removed that I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, we did it and it went great. So let's just keep going. Like I didn't actually take the time in the midst of it. But I really liked what he had said on 48 with some of the delegation. I delegate decently well, but I don't have a follow-up strategy for my delegation. So I really liked when he had said like request the weekly reports, and maybe not in like a super formal way, but even asking these questions to some of my leaders of like, hey, like what family did you connect with today? Like how, like which kid do you feel really got it? Like I don't have that figured out. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot there, Darren. But I will say I didn't take it as relational, the relationship thing either. I took it as business. And like I I still can't do like a business conversation in 5 minutes. I just can't. I don't know. My brain is way too detail oriented. Like our staff meetings, I would say most of our staff would have a challenge with or difficulty with that as well, keeping things pretty short. I have one person that might do okay with that, but I would think most of us would struggle with that.
I took his workshop, I think it was 2 years ago at MegaCon, when it was still MegaCon. And he talked about the 5 minutes, and he said when he answers the phone, you basically have 5 minutes to see if you get more of his time. So and he went into it in a lot more detail, and I think the sorry, I have like 5 million things happening here. But I think the 5 minutes is just more of like an evaluation of, is this conversation worth my time? Because he approached it kind of like as the time is money, and the beat the clock mentality of making sure that you give everybody the 5 minutes, but then if it needs more time, you obviously do give it the more time. So he had a really interesting balance that he probably goes into more into the Beat the Clock book that I have not read. What is that?
Do you have WhatsApp in America? Okay, so we use WhatsApp a lot. So we actually make very few phone calls these days. Mostly, I'll send WhatsApp messages to my voice notes to my team, so that or just send a written WhatsApp. So that does help to get to the point of things and keep communication short. And then it's also helpful because you've got communication in writing, or you've got a record of what you told the person. So that's been quite helpful.
Another good app is Band for that kind of thing. I don't know if you guys have that in Africa, but it is really helpful here in the US, and you can do all kinds of amazing things with it, as far as like attaching things to a calendar and exporting things to several locations and getting things directly to people. And it's kind of my lifeline when it comes to planning my team and planning all the things and keeping things within that 5-minute window.
If I ever have to keep anything short, mine's usually just done via text. Like those are my short conversations. or email, but those are generally a little bit longer. But I rarely, to be honest, ever have talk on the phone. Mine's either face-to-face text or email or Facebook notifications, but you know, whoever reads Facebook, well, at least in my groups, they don't. Who has I know Debbie has talked about hers, and I've mentioned mine that I have a core team. Does anybody else have like a core team or like a team that they delegate things to within their ministry? Or maybe you have like a super amazing volunteer that helps you on a weekly basis. Does anybody else have someone or a team like that and can delegate things to them? Or maybe you're one of the lucky ones that has like paid staff, assistants. Share us, tell us about it. What are you able to delegate? And it's okay to be jealous, slightly jealous, and it's okay to share.
Well, I'm trying to figure out the whole like team that delegates. Like, so in my ministry, I have a prepper. I have my Sunday school teachers do all their own planning. I don't teach at all. I don't fill in any space. Like I'm a walk around, save the day kind of moment by moment. So are you talking about like that kind of stuff? Or are you talking about like, hey, I want to plan an event. Here are the 6 people I'm going to send to do it?
Well, I guess it'll look different in every ministry because everyone's structure might be different. So for example, like mine, I'm teaching on Sunday, but I have a core team of people that like I delegate some work to. For example, like I have a curriculum prepper that comes in every week, so I do not have to do that. I have a girl that always does my calendar stuff. I have an events lady that comes and helps me with all my major events. I have, and these are volunteers, so nobody paid. I have, who else? Events lady. And these are just people that like randomly are like, I'm really like helping with events. Can I just help you with this? And like, just, I grab them and take them and keep them. Let's see, Janine, Danielle, and Lindsay. And then I have a core team. So like my core team is 4 people that I like heavily rely on. So if I ever get sick or if I'm on vacation, those 4 people run my ministry if I'm not there. So just a couple weeks ago, I was sick and they did a large group. They made sure all the classrooms were staffed with the volunteers, the radios were out, tablets were out. And like they ran the large group. That's what I normally run. So that's like what my core team does. And then those are the extra people I also listed as extra helpers.
So do you have any paid staff that works with you, Jody?
I don't, I don't, but I'm in the process of actually getting a seasonal, extremely part-time paid staff right now. Which is a huge praise for me. It's going to be basically her title is going to be my VBS seasonal person. But I'm very happy that I'm going to be getting someone. Possibly, it's got to get approved by elders, but it looks like it's going to be.
Yeah, so I talked about the core leaders that we have, and we have leaned into them in the past to help, when someone on our staff is gone, because I actually have 2 part-time staff that work with me. One does focuses mainly on the admin and helps get our curriculum organized in that. And then we have one that specializes in the early childhood area. So she, kind of is in charge of those rooms, getting those all prepped, works on crafts and things for that. But we have this other group that we started like way, way back. They used to help with both office work and with children's ministry, but now they're primarily children's ministry. We call them SOS, our super outstanding servants. And we just bring them in periodically. So leading up to Easter, we're going to have them in twice to help us, prep all the crafts and get everything ready and decorated and set up for Easter. And this is, they meet on Thursday mornings for a couple hours, and it's amazing. I mean, it is like so amazing how much they can get done in a short period of time. So we keep a running list of tasks that we think, okay, somebody else could do this. And we have those kind of things on that list. So we have a list ready to go, and we serve them super outstanding snacks. For our big setup for Easter, we actually we do it at Easter and at Christmas when we have a big event for the kids. We have them stay for lunch. So we go out and get Chick-fil-A or Olive Garden and bring that in for them. So they work for a couple hours, and then we all have lunch together. But they're, kind of an assorted group. There's a couple guys that'll show up in that group, mostly retired people. And we know which ones are good with the details and which ones we give a more mindless task to. But they've been lifesavers for us. They are just amazing. We do the coolest crafts and things for a lot of our events because of that.
At our campus, so we're part of a multi-site church. So our campus I'm part-time, so I have 20 hours, and then I also share a 20-hour family coordinator. So she helps with check-in. She's the one, so I kind of do all of the editing when it comes to the curriculum. And then she will prep the rooms. So she will make sure that the supplies are there. She kind of keeps track of inventory and lets me know if there's anything I need to add. But then on Sunday mornings, she helps run one of the services so that when I can get in. So it doesn't happen every week. We're working on it, but.
So I have a full-time admin who does all of my curriculum things, anything I need printed. She helps with scheduling, pretty much anything I need. Couldn't do ministry without her. I also have a part-time preschool director. We actually also have 2 full-time facilities and a part-time facilities director. So any events and things like that, almost everything on our church campus is multi-purpose. And so we actually have a gymatorium. And so center is actually a gym. And so every Wednesday night when we need the chairs picked up, the facilities crews picked up the chairs, and we have room for rec for our Wednesday night services. So I also, during starting in March, I usually hire 2 VBS coordinators, one to handle a lot of the admin things and one to handle like all the creative elements. And they are, it's a contract based. So I pay them $1,000 from March to July. I say, hey, just show me the work that you're doing. Let's meet every couple weeks and see the progress. But then also have a great pastoral team that anytime we need anything, we all help each other out with anything. So, and I also have lots of parent volunteers where I rarely have to teach a Sunday school hour unless just multiple people are sick at the same time, which has been the case lately. But then also, I only teach twice a month in our main worship time, our kids worship, and I'm looking at reducing that to once a month because I have other volunteers that are interested in leading. So
I missed the beginning real quick, Darren. Are you a family pastor then, or are you a kidmin pastor?
I am both.
You're both. Okay.
But I also share responsibilities with our student and college pastor as well. And so he and I kind of tag team parents. So, yeah.
And then you said you have a preschool. You have a preschool
part-time
pastor?
preschool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Good
And
team.
yeah, she's been here a long time. It also helps that, so I'm the first pastor that the church has had like full time for children specifically. Most of the time it's been extremely part time, and you know, um, members who have like, hey, I'm good at this. I was once a teacher, and then they're like, hey, I can step into this role. But there are 5 out of the last 6 people who've held the children's director role still at church, and I lean on them a lot. Actually, 4 out of the 5 still, like, if I ask them to serve, they serve. So lots of support there.
That's great you have that, that they've stayed and supported you in your role too. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm at 18 months here right now, so it's been a good 18 months.
So I was in the situation, I do not have any paid uh volunteers, paid staff, whatever. We are a pretty small church, about 200, including kids. We have a senior pastor, a youth pastor, a worship director, an office administrator, and I'm the children's pastor. Um, and I also have 5 daughters and 25 down to 15. And when they were in their teenage, and I mean, they've grown up doing ministry with alongside of me and helping and volunteering in all the ways and stuff. But now that they have graduated from college and they have full-time jobs, and the 15-year-old doesn't, but the other 4 do, I've lost my uh my at-home free labor. Oh, honey, can you help me with this? And I'm transitioning into a realization that um my girls and I did a lot of stuff over the last 7, 8 years together. And it's not that we didn't ask, but when I couldn't get volunteers, the default was to my girls and I. And um, I don't have teenagers in the youth group except for 3, my daughter and her 2 friends, that are even excited or willing to help with like stuff. I put out an ask and, oh no, I'm too busy with, I dance 6 days a week, or I have this sport that I play or whatever. And while it was great to do ministry with my girls together, um, I kind of set myself up for the situation that I'm currently in now, because I didn't do a lot of asking, and now I need to do more asking. And I find myself running up against, well, my boys all play hockey, so no, I can't come help with that. Or my kids are in sports or dance, or, that kind of thing. So what I find is it's the older people that I was referring to earlier, to like the 60 and 70-year-old women who will help because they have the time and whatever. And I'm not getting a lot of buy-in from like my parents. And our churches, we have a huge hole with like 20s and 20 somethings, like that, 20 to 30 age. We just don't have that pool of people that we could pull from. And parents are busy and stuff like that. So I've been really rethinking kind of how um who's approachable and who I can ask. And um maybe I need to change the way I'm asking or the approach that I use, or maybe I get somebody else to do the recruiting for me, that like the people were much more likely to say yes to than maybe to me. Um, but anyway, it's an interesting spot to be in right now in this transition. Our senior pastor retired in November. We have an interim pastor right now. I have no idea what pastor next is going to be like, or even when he's coming. So just a lot of transition right now with all of this stuff. But I do have people who are really committed and who really do help and who really pull together. So I love that, and people's, if they're available at the last minute, they will say, yeah, hey, I'm available to help. But just a learning, growing curve right now with all of that.
Yeah, so that SOS group that we have is primarily people that are retired, and it's kind of a social thing for them. I mean, they'll ask us, when are you going to have us come again? So if you can kind of kill two birds with one stone like that, then you might be more successful. So, another thing I was thinking about as I was reading these chapters is, and he talked about it a little bit about how, someday someone's going to succeed you in your position. You're not there forever. And regarding, how much time and energy you put into it, of your own time and energy, that if you just, burn the candle at both ends all the time, and you're the one that does the majority or the lion's share of the work, the next person that comes along, that's not really a realistic expectation. And your church is in for a big surprise, because you're working way more hours than you're getting paid for, and going above and beyond. And it's really not fair to your church or the person who's going to succeed you someday to, kind of set the stage for that. So, I mean, I've, someone a long time ago, when I was volunteering as a children's choir director, told me, if you need supplies, you need to let the church know that you need supplies. And, it's okay to once in a while buy things out of your own pocket, but for the most part, if you need supplies to run that program, they need to know what you need, so that they have a realistic budget of what it takes to run that position when you leave. And it's the same thing with time. If if you're just, staying late at night or whatever, working at home all the time, cutting and prepping things and stuff, they don't have a realistic idea of what it takes to keep that ministry rolling at the same level that you've got it going right now. So that's just something that we all need to be mindful of, myself included.
Well, I'm sure that's why he ended that chapter with move past delegation to duplication. And right now in my ministry, like I said, I'm very excited that I have this chance of getting this assistant. But one things we've been in talks of is getting an intern, which I'd love to get. Right now, I don't have anyone physically in my church that has shown interest in it, but we've been talking about like communicating with a local Christian college who has ministries, and what a great opportunity to like build a relationship on that and whatnot. But there are some people who know, who do things in my church along with me. But anyways, to that effect, I underlined what he wrote here. Duplication is even better. Duplication at the bottom of page 52. Duplication is training your team members to do what you can do. They have your heart for ministry, and that is so key right there. You've coached them until they are a copy of an original you. The heart is so important, because we can show anybody how to do things, but if they don't have the heart, then your ministry is not going to continue to blossom and bloom. Because anybody can cut a paper, anybody can read a lesson off a piece of paper, but unless they have the heart or the vision behind it, our ministries are not going to go much further than they already are. Like that, that's why where there is no vision, the people will perish, right? Like that is just so, so, so important. So that duplication is key to all of our ministries. So we need to find that person or persons and duplicate ourselves if possible, even just some parts, for ourselves and for our ministries.
Mary Lou, when you were talking, some of my favorite volunteers are the people that are fringe people. They are who I go looking for. Like when I go to a Sunday morning, I am like, which youth are not involved in anything? Which single people are not? And it's been very rewarding. Like I have some awesome, awesome volunteers. I don't know if you've looked for them, I'm sure, but they're my favorite to go after. I tend to avoid the people that I know are already connected and doing well. I tend to go for the ones that have not approached me, have whatever, and often, we get a surprising yes, and then they're surprised that they like what they're doing, and then it works good.
So I was on sabbatical last summer and I helped plan VBS with the person who was going to do it for me while I was gone. And oh my goodness, the people that came out of the woodwork to help with VBS last summer that I had no clue that they had any of these gifts, any of these interests, any of these talents. It was like a revelation. And so like I have people now that I go, oh, I can ask you for that, and I could ask you about that. And just based on what they helped with last year for VBS, it was fabulous. It was really cool.
Last year was my first VBS at my church, and I used VBS as a recruiting tool for my life group teachers and my kids worship teachers. And so like I was able to grab 6 different families to like step in and take over some things for me. And so let those events where you see people who are stepping in and doing something, say, hey, can you commit to once a month or once a quarter? Make it as easy as possible for them to say yes, but then also once they're there, give them, the encouragement and the responsibility, like, hey, I want you to own it. And when people actually um, get the opportunity to shine and have the opportunity to like take ownership of something, like they take more pride in it. And so, just want to encourage you there. Um, One of the things that I have tried to avoid as much as possible is um, taking work home with me. Um, and to the point where people at church ask my wife all the time, like, oh, hey, what's going on with this? My wife's like, I don't even know. Um, we don't even talk about it. And so now I do hire, my wife is one of the people I hire during the summer for VBS because she's just so skilled and talented I mean, she's got a degree in studio art. And so like she handles everything, but like the rest of the year, I don't even ask her to serve with me. Um, because I want her to be fed as well. And in those weeks that I'm not teaching, I'm with her. So I just want to encourage you, like it's, you use the opportunities you have. And if you realize that, hey, I might not be the best person in recruiting, find someone who is in love with what they're doing to help you and use them as your recruiter.
All right, guys. Well, we need to wrap it up for today. Great conversations. Great. I knew chapter 6 would be. It was just such good stuff. Next week will be chapter 7 on 7 and 8. There we go. I already scheduled the questions that way I wouldn't forget. So those will be posted Tuesday morning. So no issues there. Can I have someone volunteer to close us in prayer today?
I can.
Thank you.
Father God, we just thank you for who you are, a God that knows us, that loves us. You know us better than we know ourselves. Lord, I just pray that you continue to press into us and lean into us and teach us how to be the leaders that you've called each of us to be, that we would walk worthy in the calling that you have given us. And God, that we would teach others to do the same. Lord, I pray that we would not be, that we would be overwhelmed, Lord, with the amount of things that you that lay before us. But Lord, in that feeling of being overwhelmed, Lord, I pray that we would turn to you first and not try to do it on our own. God, I pray that that you would continue to put people in front of us who we can help shape and develop into future leaders, specifically some of the next generation, the students that we have at our churches who are hungry, hungry to serve you. Lord, I pray that, God, that you just continue to shape our hearts to beat for you, and God, how we can focus on people, and we can plan systems, but God, that we need to focus on the people that you love and that you created, which is our first ministry, Lord. It's in your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. Well, I hope you guys have an awesome weekend, and I will see you next week. Have a good one.